name is Tzvi Lebetkin, the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring the little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop. So we live in strange times. I actually started my last video saying exactly the same thing. This is a totally different video, talking about a totally different thing. But we do live in strange times. And if you take a step back, I mean, we're living in it, so it's hard to, like, you know, get a macro view, but you can take a step back. I mean, we're living in it, it's horrific. But you take a step back and you look, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. We're getting a first-hand look at how a free society becomes a totalitarian one. We really are. We're getting a first-hand look of how it happens in, like, you know, the nuts and bolts of it. So, firstly, you get lied to a lot, right? You get lied to a lot. And people coming from, you know, places that aren't free say, there, look, we all know you're lying. Like in China, they all know, in Korea, they all know they're lying. They all know they're being lied to. And it's just like, yeah, it's just what happens. It's just what it is. There's no expectation of it. Here, you know, in the West, we're a little bit taken aback from it, but they all know. They all know all the time. When do they stop lying? At what point do they stop lying? And we see this because we're watching it in real time. When it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't, and it's incredible. It doesn't matter what the lies are, right? It doesn't matter what they are. It's the exact millisecond that they don't matter anymore is when the truth comes out. It's not a big deal at all. Nobody really cares. We're seeing this in many places. Before we get into it, though, can you hit the like button? Even though this isn't the video I really like that much, can you hit the like button? Can you hit the share button? Can you hit the subscribe button? That would be great. Actually, I am so insanely grateful, and YouTube doesn't like me getting subscribers. They take them off more than they put them on. It's really weird, but they really do take subscribers off all the time. Why? It's part of living in real time in a totalitarian culture. It's what it's like when freedom of speech is removed. You know, I think that's probably why it's one of the first things that they went after. You remember when we said, you know, if you get rid of freedom of speech, you lose everything, right? You get you know, that's the cornerstone that society falls by. Turns out we were right. Turns out we were right. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, obviously. Comment is great. Let me know what you think, and also check out my Indiegogo. This one, not over that way. Two awesome videos. Graphic novels. We have biblical Bible stories of atheists, creationists, rationalists, and rogues. And I should let you know, the print files are already, apart from these new pages, this is 220 pages, it's ready to go. I changed the ending, brand new cover. I do like this cover, I'm very happy with it. I wrote and drew this one. It is 105 pages. We're getting new pages in. As soon as there's new pages in, I want to go to press. Because I want to start a new campaign. And I've been dragging my feet. You know, I've been dragging my feet. And you know, oftentimes when you intend to do something and you don't, you got to step back and say, well, what's my emotional objection? And my emotional objection is, I just got to get on the circuit again and get and promoting it. It's awful, right? It's awful. You hear about stand-up comedians all the time. When they get off doing stand-up, they can never go back. And it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I'll do it. I just got to jumpstart myself. But I think when I get these pages done, that should do the trick. But anyway, go check it out. Links in the notes. Thank you very much. Very, what's the word? Appreciative. Very appreciative. So anyway, last week we saw Jon Stewart. He was on the Tonight Show. The Tonight Show is unwatchably awful. It's headed by Steve Colbert, who started on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and it was essentially a Hunger Games like propaganda hour, just hating the last president intently. It was anything that happened was the worst thing ever. And again, Hunger Games, like, who was the guy who was like the TV personality in Hunger Games, right? It's exactly like anything. And then that was part of the party line. He would thump relentlessly, including the idea that our recent pandemic that upended the entire freaking world wasn't naturally occurring. Dr. Fauci, everybody said, oh, Dr. Fauci, the best one. You've got to go find these things on these viral clips. There's one, what's his name? The English guy who was in Doctor Who. I couldn't imagine him being a bigger pussy, and that even includes when he played a cat in Cats, right? The biggest, James Corden, right? It did this whole song for Dr. Fauci. Oh, we love Dr. And all these things. It's just, and they've always shown better because Turns out, Fauci was lying his arse off. Incompetence. It's always incompetence, never evil. He inadvertently authorized funding that went to create the virus in the lab, so we had this situation where we had this pandemic called the COVID-19, the COVID respiratory disease, and it came from Wuhan, and there was a place called the Wuhan lab or covert respiratory disease. So Trump was saying things like, I think we have indications that it came from there, and so of course he says up, everybody says down. Colbert says, no, you ignorant, how dare you contradict Fauci? Contradicting Fauci is contradicting the science, and they love saying the science because they don't like being argued with, even when they're wrong and patently wrong. And it was the idea that it didn't come from this lab was utterly ludicrous. But if you'd said that over the last year, you would be deplatformed instantly for spreading misinformation. Because the fact checkers have said, no, you can't agree with Donald Trump under any circumstances, right? No! And then now it doesn't matter. Now it doesn't matter. Same thing with the election. A lot of weird stuff happened. A lot of really weird stuff happened that I'd never seen before. Like a bunch of votes coming in that seemed to not be verified, and then the Democrats goes, no, it's fine, don't look at it, don't look at it, don't look at it, and we're certified. They rush to certify it, and there is no mechanism for once the election's gone through and the votes been counted and tallied, there's just no mechanism for removing votes that were fraudulently made, right? So in about next year, maybe, as long as the apocalypse doesn't happen, which is going to happen, we're going to hear, oh yeah, we're already seeing it. Arizona, I think, has already changed their result. I honestly, I haven't even looked yet. I just saw something briefly on Twitter. I think we're good because it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore at all. So Jon Stewart came out and he did a really hilarious bit in front of Steve Colbert, saying, "Oh, well, obviously it came from Wuhan, the lab. It obviously was a lab leak, right?" Which he's been vigorously saying it wasn't, because it doesn't matter. He has no egg on his face because there's no accountability whatsoever. So that makes sense for this, Khmer Rouge-esque misinformation and lies for big things like elections and pandemics. For comic books also, same thing. People like your boy Zach, they've been watching, saying this is going to destroy the comic book industry. This going headlong into identity politics and saying you hate the majority, clearly the majority of people who like comic books. We just hate you because we want this new audience that doesn't exist. We had studies saying, the studies say they exist. So, and the studies say 50% of people read comics are women. The studies said it. They said it, but it didn't turn out that way, did it? Even though the studies said it, because the studies were disingenuous bullcrap. So we're at the point right now where it looks like Marvel and DC are going to stop making new content, or if they do, I think. If I was DC, I would put out like a few graphic novels a year, right? I'll do a new, and you'll probably make money off those, right? You'll probably do well, but I would be repackaging. They're really going to be repackaging old content. I mean, Mad Magazine, they got virtually limitless stuff there. And again, imagine Mad Magazine if instead of having Alfred E. Newman as Donald Trump every month, of the month, going, hey, Donald Trump bad, Orange Man, if it was a satirical magazine that took the piss out of everybody. And listen, there's a lot to take the piss out of with Trump. I mean, he was a funny guy. I really miss him. I mean, I miss him not in terms of the policies that weren't destroying the world. I miss him in terms of, he was just fun. He was just fun, now it's just, doddery old weird, again, Hunger Games like misinformation, but anyway, they've been saying for years that this is going to happen, and the people working in comics say, it's the bestest ever! Now is the bestest time, and comics are doing great, and They include manga sales in that because if you don't, comics are doing terribly. So eventually, now it doesn't matter. Now it's over. The comic book industry is essentially over, apart from, if you want to go get Indiegogo, go, this sort of stuff. Yeah, that's where you get comics now. But the mainstream comic book industry is over. So it doesn't matter. They can tell the truth. They can tell the truth. And why? Because it doesn't matter. It's kind of like, I would say the state of the comic book industry is like this. If you ever seen Apocalypse Now, one of my favorite movies of all time, there's a scene in it where they get to the I think the north of Vietnam or the very border of Vietnam. They're going down this river trying to find Marlon Brando, as you do, and they're at the border, and it's just chaos. There's a bridge there, and GIs are running wild. They don't know what's going on, and it's just completely insane, and there's no control. So he finds Charlie Sheen finds Martin Sheen finds one guy there, says, who's your CEO? Who's in charge here? And the soldier, space soldier says, isn't it you? Aren't you in charge? That's basically where the comic book industry is right now. It's fallen apart. It's a shambles. I think what happened is a bunch of new editors came in who were incredibly ideologically driven. They want to break that glass ceiling. It was all women, and they broke the glass ceiling and also the building underneath it, and they destroyed the comic book industry. Right? They absolutely destroyed it. So it seems like good people, A-list people hire A-list people because A-list people want things to be great. B-grade people normally hire C-grade people. Why? Because they don't want to look stupid, and C-grade people just let things fall apart, which is where we are right now. Anyway, so this thing that we said that's coming, we said it was coming. Now wait and see. Erik Larsen said it this last week. The CEO founder and CEO. He just wasn't a founder of Image Comics. And it was like, yeah. Same thing with the Wuhan lab leak. And it was like, yeah, we all know. Yeah. It's like, so let's read the story together. And again, let's have a look at propaganda, disinformation in real time as our world bursts into flames. Image Comics CFO Erik Larsen claims Marvel and DC bosses might shut down new comics production. We say, yes, it makes sense. Image Comics CFO Erik Larsen recently claimed that DC Comics and Marvel comic bosses might shut down new production altogether. And when people like Ethan Van Sciver says it, people's heads burst into flames. They're like, ah! And it's like, the guy from the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and his face like, ah! Like exactly like that. Larsen made the comics after expressing his views on piracy. Yeah, the latest thing the idiots that destroyed the comic book industry are saying is, it's piracy. Piracy is what's destroying the comic book industry. No, it's not. Piracy lets people read comics for free. These are not comics people would buy, would be reading if they had to pay for them. If there was a paywall, the answer would be no, under no circumstances. I pay for my comics because I'm crazy religious. In Jewish we call that Meshuggah Frum. But normally people are like, yeah, I'll check it out because it's free. Otherwise not. So the piracy is not destroying comics, I think. On the piracy debate, says Larsen, there's no debate. It's criminal behavior. I agree with you. People are struggling to make a living, and if you're taking what they're creating without giving them compensation, there is no justification. I'm not justifying it. I'm saying that if piracy was impossible, it wouldn't translate into sales. Like if everybody pirating a comic doesn't mean they're going to buy a comic. I would say probably 5%. Or people pirating comics would buy them if they had to buy them. So in response, author N. Thomas Harrison wrote, where do you draw the line between bloated cross-title, blatant cash grab titles that Marvel constantly pulls with their main titles, though? Look at the Extra Source from last year. Is it fair to expect a kid who's reading X-Men to buy 22 extra books, $100 plus over 3 months? That's an interesting point. Yeah, I mean, listen, the reason the record industry really went down big time when Napster came along, the thing I talked about it last week, the thing that made pirating possible is because the record companies were disgusting pigs, snuffling their trouts at the trough, of just milking you for everything they could, and so people were really happy to see them go down. There's nothing about that which entitles you to own it. That's true. If it's expensive, don't buy it. Listen, Eric, I agree with you. I don't think the malfeasance of Marvel and DC justifies immoral behavior, which stealing is immoral. I agree with you. However, it doesn't justify it, but it explains it. It explains it, and again, I don't think those that the piracy would translate into sales. I really don't. But again, I agree with you. So it goes on. It's less of a problem of entitlement as it's a problem of corporate assumption that all consumers are able to withstand the rate of content. Imagine a landlord giving notice that the next 2 months you have to pay 7 times as much as usual to keep the apartment. But no, it's not comparable because you don't need your comic books. That's the thing. You don't need your comic books. But are the companies still gouging? Yes, you are. Yes, they are. These companies are floundering and failing. The threat from upstairs is that they'll go to all reprints and stop producing new material. They're doing everything they can to stay alive. If you can't afford it, do without. Eric May, it's not about that. People are not pirating comics because they would buy. It's just not. Oftentimes, I will pirate something to see and read the first few pages, see if I'm going to buy it, right? Because I would do that in a comic book store. I would go to a comic book store, I would thumb through it, I would be like, I'll read the first few pages, 5 pages, and if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. But listen, you're both right. Here's the truth: you're both right, but accidentally you let the cat out of the bag there. Of course, I do agree with everything you're saying. Stealing from artists and creators is wrong in all scenarios. It was really just a specific instance that came to mind when a company's decisions made me scratch my head because it almost inherently begets pirating. I tend to agree with you there. I do tend to agree with you there. So let's go. So while Marvel and DC Comics sales numbers are now much harder to come by, given that DC no longer distributes with Diamond, and Marvel also left that distributor because they stopped distributing comics. Do you remember when that went down? When Diamond Comics stopped distributing comics, and people said, DC said, I think we got to find somebody else then to distribute comics. And people were like, oh man, you don't want to leave Diamond, even though they're not doing the one thing you want them to do. I did a show last night with the indie comic creators, and somebody made who was it? I think Clint. I had 2 Clint on. Sweetcast Clint. Okay, he made the point that it's much easier to sell to a consumer, to sell directly to consumer, than it is to sell to like an editor to hire you to do to sell to a small group of people who will greenlight and allow you into the industry. It's much easier just to sell to the consumer. And I think he's absolutely correct. I'm quite gratified. I'm doing way better than like IDC Comics, for example, with my Indiegogo, just because I'm not a few $1 million in the red. How much I was going by Time Z. He's also left the distributor. Adult graphic novel sales released by the MPT Bookscan show North Americans getting absolutely trounced by Japanese manga. Yeah, they always have to put manga in because otherwise it's the refrain. Oh, comics are doing the bestest ever. Just is nonsense. Just is absolute nonsense. Every single listing was my latest data from May revealed that not a single North American comic was in the top 20. Adult graphic novels. Every single listing was Japanese manga, with Attack on Titan, the volume 33, taking the top spot. Yeah, listen, they've inherited that market. Probably because they make comics to appeal to people who buy comics. Not only are Japanese manga doing dominating as an adult graphic novel charts, but reprints make up a hefty percentage of the top 20 superhero graphic novel chart. Also, comic book stores. If you were a what's the word? Not reprint. A back issue store. If you focus on back issues, you basically survived. You basically did okay. If your bread and butter was new comics, you went under. Right? I think it's pretty much the template. In fact, the top spot, this belongs to DC Comics, was a 2019 edition of Alan Moore's Watchmen. Oh man, Alan Moore. I wish I could go back in time and tell you not to sign that contract, mate. You're not going to be happy with it. Other reprints on this include Batman: The Long Halloween, Batman Killing Joke Deluxe Edition hardcover, Batman Year One, the EC Archives, Tales from the Crypt, Sandman Volume 1, and Watchmen: The Dark City. Yeah, why wouldn't you go to just doing reprints, right? So yeah, it seems like the writing's on the ball. But when is it okay to stop lying? When is it okay to stop lying? When it doesn't matter anymore. It's say with Jon Stewart, and I guarantee you, if it ever stops mattering that the election was a bit funky in 2020, I think honestly, we're pretty much there. If it ever stops, stops mattering, they'll probably start telling the truth about that as well. My name is Tzvi Lebetkin, you're the Rabbi from another planet. Please like, share, and subscribe, and ring that little bell. Ring the little bell so you're notified when new videos drop.